On that quiet afternoon, time itself seemed to slow down as if it were listening to the hearts of people who had grown tired from loving too deeply. Diep sat calmly across from him, her expression gentle yet guarded, carrying emotions she had learned to hide well. When she was asked how things were between her and James, she answered that they were fine, even though both of them understood that fine was only another word for exhaustion. When the question of love arose, whether she still had feelings for James, silence filled the space between them. Because the answer had never truly changed. It was he, her father, who had once forced her to let James go. Not because their love was weak, but because life had placed too many obstacles in their way. Diep admitted that she and James had endured countless trials. So many that they were both worn down. Not from a lack of love, but from loving in silence for far too long. Before she left, she was told where James was staying now. An old house only a few hundred meters away. Close enough to reach, yet emotionally distant, and she was warned to be careful of James's father. As Diep stood up, her heart beat faster, realizing that the distance between her and James had never felt both so near and so impossibly far. Elsewhere, in a small, aging house, a young girl adjusted her messy hair and wondered softly whether Uncle James would visit that day. But once again James broke his promise. Dinner was prepared, simple dishes filled with warmth, and everyone waited for him as they always did. Yet the empty chair remained empty, and the gentle words saying he might not come felt heavier than anyone wanted to admit. James was absent not only from the meal, but from the family moments he longed for the most. Few people knew that the man who once stood at the top as a CEO, surrounded by contracts and bright lights, now bent his back in a grapefruit orchard, carefully picking fruit with hands that once signed decisions worth millions. He worked quietly, used to the fall from the heights of success to the ground of survival. A fall fate never asked his permission for. Amid the sounds of bargaining and daily labor, James suddenly paused, thinking he saw someone who looked like Diep, or perhaps it was simply longing shaping his vision. Not long before this, James had made the most painful decision of his life, to leave Diep, not because he stopped loving her, but because he refused to let their love destroy her relationship with her father or force her to live in conflict and loneliness. A life James himself had known too well. Having grown up without parents, he understood deeply how precious a father's love was, and so he chose to walk away, believing that leaving was the only way to protect the woman he loved. Even as his own heart quietly shattered. Now, standing in the still air of the orchard, James was a man who had lost status, wealth, and love, yet what remained was his will. Whether James could change his own fate was a question without an answer. But one truth was clear, he was no longer running. He was living, enduring, and paying the price for his choices. And perhaps from this lowest point, James would learn how to rise again, not to become a CEO once more, but to become himself. And if fate had already been written, then with his worn and weathered hands, he was beginning to write it anew.
Ê,
Về đi.